Good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. This is part 3 of an analysis I'm doing on the interview that Dr Dewi Evans has with the Daily Mail, which was published on, it's a podcast, published on the 18th of September. In case I forget it, I just want to reiterate this thought again. At no point in his recollections does he say to any of the people interviewing him, across any of these interviews, that he had a sense of urgency or concern when he's writing intended harm on case after case after case, that he's decided it's intended harm leading to death or leading to a crash. Sorry. At no point does he express that he had any sense of urgency that the nurse or doctor, because it's meant to be either or anyone on that ward, are they still there? Have they moved to another department? Are they harming patients there? Have they moved to another hospital? Are they harming patients there? Are they still on the neonatal ward? Are they harming patients there? No sense of concern, no sense of urgency, no question about it even. It's almost as though he's in a completely relaxed point of view about it. He says he's being disturbed by it and it's getting to him. He'll say that later in the interview. He's realising something's terribly wrong, but no sense of concern as to whether that person's still working there or not. As I've said before, it's a glaring omission in his storytelling, and it's a glaring omission that he doesn't reconstruct, because he never had that concern while he was doing those reports. And he never had that concern while he was doing those reports, even though he's writing intended harm, intended harm, intended harm across case after case after case. He never has that concern because he knows already, either through the consultants prior to the police being involved, and or through the police telling him that a suspected nurse has been removed from the neonatal unit. And I suspect, and I believe he knows her name as well. I wanted to go back to the baby that he says is crying for 30 minutes, screams and then cries for 30 minutes, and then he comes up with a hypothesis of what's happened. There are people that are writing articles out there in terms of they're challenging the medical notes say that in detail, but I'll have to leave that to one side at the moment. I'm trying to find more documented evidence of what people are saying about child N, and Lucy Letby was charged with attempted murder on child N. But we'll just listen to Dr. Evans again here.
Who screamed and then cried for 30 minutes. And whilst I'll never be able to prove it, I think the bubble went into the coronary artery, into the blood vessel of the heart, giving the poor babe a heart attack, which is extremely painful. And
the question that I thought of this morning, listening to that again from last night, is that I'll never be able to prove it. I suppose my question is, isn't it possible to show when the heart attack has happened? Isn't there some marker left on the heart? Wouldn't there be that? I don't know. That's for a medical person to come up with that. In other words, he's saying he can't prove it, but can it be positively disproved? I don't know if you could do it retrospectively now. Because I don't know if whether when you've had a heart attack, does that leave signs on the heart that that's happened? And if so, were there any tests done or X-rays or whatever it would have been to show that there was some damage to the heart from the heart attack, to positively disprove what he's saying he can't prove and could never prove? I'm going to go back to where I left off last night, which is about 23 and a half minutes into the interview, and see what we have here.
What they did, they had to cross-reference the day and time of the collapse with the nurses on duty.
Yeah, that was covered last night, but I don't believe I made mention of the glaringly obvious point there is that he just mentions nurses, doesn't he? And that's his idea. He's saying it's his idea to tell them to do that. To tell the hospital / police to do that. It's his idea. He doesn't say or anyone who has access to the babies. He doesn't say the doctors, doesn't say the consultants. Just the nurses. Why would he do that? Why would he tell them to... in other times it seems more vague. He's saying, just see who's on shift. Sometimes he said it's the doctors and the nurses. Now he's saying it's the nurses. And I think that's what it is, because he knows that Lucy Letby has been moved out of the neonatal unit, and he's getting them to construct and fabricate a proof as though it's being discovered. But he's making it explicit there, and he's stating, it's just the nurses we need to look into. He's not biased though, is he? He's not biased. Yes, okay, so this is the next little bit he's saying.
Well, this is what they did. They had to cross-reference the day and time of the collapse with the nurses on duty, even after...
Just the nurses on duty.
To the first 4 collapses, so these are babies A, B, C and D, there was only one nurse on duty for all 4.
Well, that was...
This is interesting. It sounds like he's doing it incrementally and piecemeal, like he's done it after the first 4. That's sounding like a story of someone who's given them the first 4 and getting an assurance from them, or getting the information back that it's only one nurse for the first 4. He's given something away there, because I'm not sure that's what he did, based on his other statements. I think doesn't he say in other times, he's gone through all the 32, got the 15, then sends all that and say, well, it's need to see who's on duty for the full 15. But now he's broken it down for the first 4. And that first 4 are what, and the interview comes up and picks it up here. He's given something major away there. That there was an early suspicion of the first 4, that's set up the suspicion in the minds of Breary and Jayaram, and then eventually the other gang of 4 doctors. He's given something significant away, how he's broken that down. Elsewhere, he said, I achieved the 15 cases where I was suspicious, and I'm writing intended harm on all of them. And then I ask, then it's me, Evans, suggesting, like they don't know, they couldn't work it out, suggesting that you, police / hospital, look at all the rotors and see who's on duty. He's broken it down to the 4 there, which is a match with the first 4, with what sets off the whole persecution of Lucy Letby from 2015 onwards. It's very I hope I'm getting this across. I think it's very significant that he's done that. Because as far as I'm aware, what he did not do, based on all these other statements, what he did not do is send, because he's still working through all the 32 reports. What he did not do is establish, send the first 4 that he finds and get them to them as quickly as possible and find out who's on duty. He doesn't do that. I've not heard that anywhere whatsoever. I heard he makes his report of all of them and then says, well, I'll look at the rotors. But now he's demarcating it, making it very specific to the first 4. And that's an alignment with what Breary did in 2015, which suggests to me, I'm inferring from that he's heard the story. Not that he did that, not that he sent those 4 and said, look at the rotas now for the first 4 and establish Lucy Letby's on for all 4 cases. That's a leakage into his tale here from what he's heard much earlier. I'm talking about in 2015 or 2016 from Breary or from Gibbs or from Jairam, from somebody in that hospital before he's got involved with the police case. That's a leakage into that. He's making really, really bad mistakes in this.
I don't know which Dr. Breary started to become concerned after the 4.
They looked at it from the wrong point of view.
They looked at it from the wrong point of view. He's gone back and then... but of course everyone's wrong. They looked at it from the wrong point of view. He's the master. He's like the old master that knows absolutely everything, more than all those consultants. Well, I mean, I'm not carrying a torch for them. More than all the pathologists, more than anyone in the universe, actually. He is the fount of absolute knowledge here. And they did it all the wrong way. They looked at it the wrong way. He's kind of saying, well, yeah, you were right to suspect her then, but you did it the wrong way. And only I, the great Dewi Evans, can tell retrospectively how badly you did it and why you did it wrong. But that's definite leakage in from what he was told prior to when he should have known about it, I believe, about that 4. Otherwise, why would he split them up like that? Why would he split them up in his testimony here, in his interview? Why would he say, oh, the first 4 showed that? No, his reports were for the full 15 to then garner, and then suggesting, look at the rotas for all of them. Why would he split it into those first 4 to mirror what Breary had done in 2015? Because he'd had prior knowledge, he's got prior knowledge of the story that the consultants told him prior to him getting involved in the investigation. That's what I suspect, that's what I believe has happened.
As a doctor, what you have to do is to get the diagnosis. So they'd picked up the fact that something peculiar was going on.
Listen to the arrogance. Oh, you've got to get the diagnosis as a doctor. What? I mean, he's just going for everyone now. So they couldn't get the diagnosis. None of the consultants there, the whole hospital, nobody else can, only he can. Oh, by the way, this is what you've got to do as a doctor, get a diagnosis. Like nobody else would know that. It's the same MO as like nobody else would have an idea of checking the rotas. Everything would fall ground to a halt without him there, wouldn't it? Wouldn't be able to do it. The police wouldn't be able to investigate. Doctors wouldn't know anything. You've got to get the diagnosis. The pathologists were all wrong because they didn't get any diagnosis of what's caused the death. Doctors couldn't. Pathologists didn't. He does it just on bits of paper. He's never met the babies. He says later on, I never met them and I never knew anything about them. So, but he's able to do it from these quite possibly incomplete and very shabbily produced and very shabbily presented medical notes that he says are in a terrible state. He manages to get the diagnosis that nobody else could, all from this shabby material that's quite likely to be partial and some of it incorrect and some of it contradictory and some of it missing and maybe not all sent across at all, deliberately or accidentally. But he's able to do it all. He's amazing, isn't he? The amazing Dr. Dewi Evans, or as Dr McLachlan said in his article, the incredible Dr. Dewi Evans. Incredible as in not credible. Anyway.
And it was all seemed to be related to one nurse being on duty. But what they failed to do early on was to work out what was the cause of the collapse.
Why do you think?
We're talking about first 4 babies there, but there's 3 deaths and 1 collapse. So he just says collapse there. That's a bit of an oddity. But he said what they failed to do, he repeats it again. It was all down to the nurse. They got that bit right of the first four. Why is he splitting up into that first four? Because that's the beginning of the story that the consultants, that's the beginning of the rumours. It's the first four, 3 deaths and 1 crash, that Breary takes to Karen Rees eventually in November. It's that puts him, that makes him make not an inquiry, a sort of a review of the 3 deaths and the 1 crash in a very short order. Breary, he does that grouping, and you've got Evans here retrospectively in alignment with their story and with their journey of the 4. Despite him saying everywhere else, he looks through all the 32, 33, whatever the number keeps changing, and comes up with the 15, then suggests, now you need to look at who's on duty, because only he could think of that. Such an amazing idea, couldn't he? I'll do a little bit more, because there's so much in here, it's beyond belief, really. He's beyond belief.
They didn't pick up on that. Well, do you think that was because it's just almost something so off medics' radar, off clinicians' radar in a working unit, that they were too consumed with looking for, the usual infection and, and actually the post-mortems didn't, came back natural causes.
Interesting question. There's the idea they're so consumed they can't do any diagnoses. Pathologists can't do any diagnoses. Only Dr. Evans can. Years later, from a shabby bunch of medical notes, but the people that worked with the babies, tended to them, done post-mortems on the babies, can't do anything. Can't make any diagnoses. Can't work out anything, can't see anything, don't know anything. But he knows everything. Down the line, 2 years down the line. From the notes, from the shabby notes. He tells us they're shabby. He says they're all over the shop. He says the bits are missing. He says they're upside down. He says they're in a terrible state. That's not me saying that. I don't know how much more I can do with this today. I might leave it there. There's a lot in this. There's a lot more to come. I mean, there's another 6, 19, about 20 minutes or something like that. There's a lot more he's going to say, I know it, but I have to break it up because the video will become too long. I don't want to lose things. I want to jump on everything he's saying that feels right to do so. Not for the sake of it. I don't enjoy doing these videos. I find it very stressful, and that's not a woe is me. It's nothing to do with that. I'm not doing this for pleasure. What everyone's trying to do in their own way, I can't do it from a medical point of view or legal point of view. I'm just trying to do something, because of the absolute sort of anguish I felt, actually, or a deep upset, I should say, maybe deep, profound upset I felt about what's happened to Lucy Letby and what can happen in this country to an individual, how justice can be inverted and the innocent person just damned for the rest of their lives in front of the whole world, and everyone saying that they're a serial killer when they're innocent. It's crushing. So the pragmatic purpose of this, from my perspective, is to make an attempt for as best as I can, and other people can decide whether there's anything in it or not, is to look at the language and see how people give themselves away, how they leak what I believe is prior knowledge, and how what they say raises further questions about their competency. I mean, not as though there's a shortage of those in respect to Evans anyway, but to see if there's more. Not for the hell of it, but it's all towards one aim. However it works, even if it's energetically putting an energy into the idea that in order to free a person who's innocent, we've got to in total deconstruct deconstruct the vicious and, quite frankly, evil machinery and trap that's been set for her by characters like Evans, primarily him, but others as well. And the whole system. To say the system is not to say, well, they're all embodied. They're embodied beings within that system. All those detectives, those consultants, Evans, Bohin, other people, the CPS, the prosecution, the judiciary as a whole, concerns about all aspects of whether that was a fair trial. Anyway, I'll leave it there, and then I'll just sort of gone up to 24 minutes 23. I've only done an extra minute. Oh my god. But anyway, I'm just going to carry on doing this one, and then I'll go back to finishing off the Talk TV one, which is already up to 6 or 7 parts, but this is going to have that similar amount, if not more. And then there's the Raj Persaud interview, and then there's all the other people, all the other interviews. There's Breary, there's Gibbs, there's several of Jayaram's. I just don't want to leave any stone unturned in terms of what their language might be saying, what their recollections and their storytelling might be giving away, what we could infer from it, how it could begin to break down what they said has happened. You know, when you get obvious contradictions, that he's saying, oh, it was a blank sheet for the police and me, and then you've got Detective Hughes, the SIO, saying, oh, we knew her name from day one, and we knew where she was, we knew she was off the ward, and you can ask me, why didn't I arrest her straight away? And I can say to you, well, that was a hard question not to answer. See the disparity, and there'll be many more of those, and there are many of those already, and there'll be many, many, many more. Thanks for listening if you have, and take care. Bye-bye.